Has the Toronto Maple Leafs organization completely lost its mind? Or are we witnessing the beginning of the most shocking trade conversation in franchise history? When Nick Kypreos, a man who's seen it all in this league, floats the idea of trading Auston Matthews, you don't just brush it off as hot take radio nonsense. You sit up, you pay attention, and you ask yourself, has it really come to this? Welcome back, Leafs Nation. Today, we're diving into the most controversial, most uncomfortable, and potentially most franchise-altering discussion that's emerged this season. We're talking about the possibility, however remote, however unthinkable, that the Toronto Maple Leafs might actually consider trading their generational goal-scoring superstar. And before you slam that dislike button or fire off an angry comment, hear me out, because whether we like it or not, the circumstances surrounding Matthews this season have created a perfect storm of doubt, frustration, and legitimate organizational concern. This isn't just about one injury. This isn't just about missing a few games. This is about a pattern that's becoming impossible to ignore, a contract situation that's ticking like a time bomb, and a franchise that might be forced to ask the most painful question imaginable. Can we actually count on Auston Matthews to be available when it matters most? Buckle up. This one's going to hurt. Let's start with what Nick Kypreos actually said on Kyper and Bourne show this week. Because context matters, and we're not dealing in clickbait speculation here. Kiprios didn't advocate for trading Matthews. He didn't call for it. He didn't say it should happen. What he did was far more sobering. He acknowledged that if current trends continue, if the injury concerns persist, and if the Leafs find themselves on the outside looking in come playoff time, the organization might have no choice but to consider the unthinkable. His co-host thought the idea was absurd. Most fans will think it's absurd. But here's the thing. Absurd doesn't mean impossible. And in the cold, calculated world of NHL management, every asset, no matter how talented, no matter how beloved, has to be evaluated through the lens of availability, reliability, and long-term value. Kiprios pointed to three critical factors that make this conversation relevant. First, injury concerns. Matthews has missed significant time in each of the last two seasons. Last year, he played just 67 games. This season, he's already dealing with another upper body injury that's kept him out of the lineup for an extended stretch. He's been skating for 3 consecutive days as of Thursday, but he still wasn't cleared to play against Columbus. That's not a minor setback. That's a pattern. Second, playoff uncertainty. According to Money Puck Analytics, the Leafs' playoff chances are hovering around a terrifying 11.25%. This is a team that won the Atlantic Division last season, and now they're fighting just to stay in the conversation. Without Matthews, and without Mitch Marner during overlapping absences, Toronto has proven they're not the same team. They don't have the depth to survive extended periods without their superstars. Third, contract timeline. This is the elephant in the room that nobody wants to acknowledge. Matthews will be 2 years away from unrestricted free agency after this season. He'll be eligible for a contract extension next summer. If Toronto misses the playoffs this year, if the injury concerns continue, and if there's any doubt about his long-term commitment to the franchise, management will face an impossible decision. Do we risk losing him for nothing, or do we explore what his trade value looks like while we still have control? That's the conversation Kiprios opened. Not because he wants it to happen, not because he thinks it should happen, but because the circumstances are forcing everyone to at least consider the possibility. Let's talk about the core issue here, availability. Because in professional sports, the most important ability is availability. And right now, Auston Matthews' availability is becoming a legitimate organizational concern. The numbers don't lie. Matthews played 67 games last season, missing 15 games in a campaign where every single point mattered. This season, he's already missed significant time with what's being described as another upper body injury. The exact nature of these injuries remains frustratingly vague, but the pattern is undeniable. Matthews is not staying healthy. And here's what makes this situation so uniquely problematic for Toronto. They're not built to survive without him. When Matthews is in the lineup, he's a game-breaking, Hart Trophy-caliber center who can single-handedly tilt the ice in Toronto's favor. His goal-scoring ability is generational. His two-way play has improved dramatically. He's exactly the kind of player you build a championship team around. But when he's not in the lineup, the Leafs look ordinary. They struggle to generate offense. They lose games they should win. And most damaging of all, they fall further and further behind in a playoff race that's becoming more desperate by the day. Last season, Toronto managed to win the Atlantic Division despite Matthews missing time because they had depth, momentum, and a favorable schedule. This season, none of those advantages exist. The Atlantic Division is a bloodbath. The Leafs' defensive structure, while improved under Craig Berube, still has significant gaps. And the simultaneous absences of Matthews and Marner have exposed just how thin this roster really is. The injury itself, another upper body issue, raises questions about whether there's an underlying problem that hasn't been properly addressed. Is this a recurring injury? Is it something that will continue to flare up throughout his career? Are the Leafs managing his workload properly? Or are they pushing him too hard when he's on the ice? These aren't just medical questions. They're organizational questions. Because if Toronto can't rely on Matthews to be available for 75 to 80 games a season, they need to fundamentally rethink how they constructed this roster. You can't build around a superstar who's only available 70 to 75% of the time and expect to compete for championships. And then there's the playoff consideration. Matthews has been available for every playoff series Toronto has played during his tenure. But what happens if these injuries start affecting his postseason availability? What happens if the Leafs finally break through to the second round, the conference finals, and their best player is compromised or unavailable? That's the nightmare scenario that keeps management up at night. Now, let's address the contract situation, because this is where the Kiprios theory starts to gain uncomfortable traction. Matthews signed a 4-year extension in August 2023 that carries a $13.25 million cap hit. That deal runs to the 2027 to 28 season, which means he'll be eligible for unrestricted free agency in the summer of 2028. He can sign an extension starting July 1st, 2026, just 18 months from now. Here's the timeline that should terrify every Leafs fan. If Toronto misses the playoffs this season, they'll enter next year with Matthews having just 2 years remaining on his contract. That's when the leverage shifts. That's when the whispers start. That's when every media outlet in North America begins speculating about whether Matthews will re-sign or test free agency. And if the injury concerns persist, if Matthews continues to miss 10 to 15 games a season, if there's any doubt about his long-term durability, Toronto's negotiating position becomes significantly weaker. The Leafs have already lived through this nightmare with other star players. They watched franchise cornerstones leave. They've dealt with contract uncertainty. They felt the pressure of trying to win before a championship window closes. And now, they might be facing the most painful version of that scenario yet. Kiprios' point is simple. If you can't count on Matthews to be available, and if there's uncertainty about his long-term commitment, you might need to explore his trade value while you still have control. Because the worst-case scenario isn't trading him. It's losing him for nothing when he walks in free agency. Let's be clear about what Matthews would command in a trade. We're talking about a package that would reshape the entire franchise. Multiple first-round picks, top prospects, young roster players. The kind of haul that would give Toronto a chance to rebuild on the fly rather than starting from scratch. But here's the psychological barrier that makes this conversation so difficult. Trading Auston Matthews would be an admission of failure. It would be acknowledging that the franchise couldn't build a championship team around a generational talent. It would be devastating for a fan base that's already endured decades of disappointment. So, where does this leave the Toronto Maple Leafs? In the short term, they need Matthews to get healthy and return to the lineup. They need him to stay healthy for the remainder of the season. They need him to be the dominant, game-breaking force that justifies his contract and his status as the franchise cornerstone. And they need to make the playoffs, because missing the postseason would trigger exactly the kind of organizational soul-searching that makes Kiprios' theory relevant. But let's play out the scenarios, because that's what management is doing behind closed doors right now. Scenario 1. Matthews returns, stays healthy, and leads Toronto to playoff success. The injury concerns fade. The contract extension gets done. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief, and this entire conversation becomes a footnote in a season that ultimately worked out. This is a best-case scenario, and it's what every Leafs fan is praying for. Scenario 2. Matthews returns but continues to deal with recurring injuries. Toronto limps into the playoffs or misses entirely. The front office is forced to have uncomfortable conversations about whether they can build a championship team around a player who's unavailable 15 to 20% of the time. The contract extension negotiations become complicated. Doubt creeps in. Scenario 3. Toronto misses the playoffs, and Matthews' injury concerns persist into next season. This is where Kiprios' theory becomes reality. Management faces an impossible choice. Do we commit long-term to a player whose availability is questionable, or do we explore trade options while we still have leverage? It's the nightmare scenario that nobody wants to acknowledge, but everyone needs to prepare for. The organizational philosophy matters here too. Brad Treliving and the front office have shown they're willing to make difficult decisions. They've overhauled the coaching staff. They've retooled the roster. They've changed the culture. But trading Auston Matthews would be a decision of an entirely different magnitude. A franchise-altering move that would define Treliving's tenure one way or another. Here's the brutal truth. Leafs Nation. Nobody wants to have this conversation. Nobody wants to imagine a Toronto Maple Leafs team without Auston Matthews. But the circumstances are forcing us to at least acknowledge the possibility. Nick Kypreos didn't suggest trading Matthews because he thinks it's a good idea. He suggested it because the injury patterns, the contract timeline, and the playoff uncertainty have created a situation where management might not have a choice. And that's terrifying. Right now, the focus needs to be on getting Matthews healthy and back on the ice. The Leafs need him. The fan base needs him. And frankly, he needs to prove that he can stay available and lead this team to the success everyone believes is possible. But if the pattern continues, if the injuries persist, if Toronto finds itself on the outside looking in, then the unthinkable becomes thinkable. And a conversation that seems impossible today might become inevitable tomorrow. Drop your thoughts in the comments, Leafs Nation. Is Kiprios out of line, or is he raising legitimate concerns? Could you ever imagine the Leafs trading Matthews? And most importantly, smash that like button to show you're as invested in this team's future as I am. This is our team. This is our reality, and we face it together, no matter how uncomfortable the truth might be.